Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Star Trek stream. This is Blind Press, and I am joined today by the One Ton Hammer and Skep Talk. Hi, guys. How are you? And hopefully Polydub will show up.
Oh, he's always late.
Live long and prosper.
Exactly.
I'm doing good. Skep Talk's doing good. Just thought I'd speak for you.
No, I am doing quite well. Not dead yet.
Well, tonight we're here to talk about the pilot episode of the next installment in the Star Trek franchise, The Next Generation. And the title of that pilot was The Encounter at Farpoint. And a bit of trivia for those listening. Yesterday was the 31st anniversary of Star Trek The Next Generation. So this is kind of fitting that we're talking about the pilot episode. And real fast, I'm just gonna quick summarize it. And obviously there will be spoilers. It's a freaking 31-year-old episode, so watch it, damn you. Yeah. So the story, it's basically got two plots to the story. The first plot is the first mission of the Enterprise crew. They need to investigate a mystery at Farpoint Space Station and broker a deal with the Bandi, the alien race who built it, for use of the station. And they need to figure out how they built the station so quickly and the mystery surrounding that. And the second plot is the trial and test of whether or not humanity is an egregiously savage race. And this plot also introduces the best reoccurring Star Trek character ever, Q.
Oh, yes.
Q is awesome.
Yep.
So basically the whole episode of Encounter at Farpoint is the discovery of this mystery at Farpoint and how the Enterprise crew uses that discovery as their proof that humanity is no longer savage. And that is how they use it to win their trial against Q. But really quick, before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this interview, I just want to say hello to chat. I want to say hello to Prospero, Cult of Krill. And by the way, thank you to Cult of Krill for the $20 Streamlabs donation just before the stream. With the message, I'm glad you start streaming. I love your content. All hail Blue Whale and fright power to you, Cult of Krill. Thank you for the donation. And we're going to say hello to Opinionated Gulf City Scotsman. Who else is here? So far, just those people. But I'm sure more people will come in. So what I wanted to ask you guys was, what do you think about this pilot, like the pilot of Next Generation versus The Cage? Which pilot episode do you think is, I don't know if I want to say better, but which do you like best out of those two, The Cage or Farpoint? Because I'll tell you what I like best after you guys.
You go first, Hammer. You're smarter than I am.
Well, that's a very nice thing to say. Not entirely at all true, but which one do I like better? It's a hard question because if it wasn't for the original series, there would be no Next Gen. So there's a certain amount of bow. Okay, you are the originator kind of deal. It seems like there's something about every Star Trek series that the first year is kind of scatterbrain.
Yes.
And it's not so obvious as it is with this episode. You can't really make out the personalities yet. The personalities of the characters have not been fleshed out by the writers ahead of time. So they've kind of given the actors the names of the characters, but doesn't really seem to give them what these characters are about. They haven't fleshed out ahead of time. So these people kind of act against their later nature. Maybe it's just that people, get more mature as you go. But if you watch the original series, then go back and watch Farpoint, you're kind of like, who are these guys? They look like the original actors, but they don't act like the original actors do. So if you can get past that, I don't think there's any better intro story to a series than perhaps Voyager. I think Voyager is the only one where you definitely knew who they were right up front, even though some of them die right away. But Janeway is Janeway through the entire series.
Yes.
He never changes. So that stability is something you don't get with Farpoint.
Yeah. I think that stability is a two-edged sword, but that's just me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. Go ahead. You're up.
First of all, let me agree violently with Blind Press about Q being one of my favorite Star Trek characters of all time. Q is just too cool for school. He's urbane, utterly corrupt. He's just everything I wanted to be, and I wanted my kids to be.
And I still want to be.
Yeah, I still want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. My take on comparing the two pilots is that in the original series, the pilot and the way that the characters acted in their roles was closer to the way they ended up than the way the Next Generation characters acted in their roles.
Yes.
Data seems unsure of whether or not he's supposed to show a little emotion, no emotion, or what the deal is, in this first thing. And he does a little bit of everything. He's kind of all over the map in different moments. The thing with and this is one of the things that I liked least about it, was the way that Beverly and Wesley Crusher were handled. I'm just going, okay, this guy delivered the news that your husband died, a long time ago, 15 years ago or whatever, and you're so sensitive and broken up about it that, look, if you've ever been near service people in the military service, deaths happen. Everybody's familiar. Everybody, and I do mean everybody, knows somebody who's in a family where somebody has died. That's just the way the military is. So that was not realistic to me, the way that she was reacting to Picard. And the other thing was Picard's supposed problem with kids. He just didn't act very well through that. I don't think he thought about what he was going to say, or it was just so poorly written. But like when he tells Wesley to get off the quarterdeck or the bridge rather, when he's correctly reading off what the captain's chair's arms are supposed to be, I didn't believe that at all. That line just came out of nowhere, and I just went, man, there's no motivation, no real setup for that. This sudden mercurial change, that doesn't look real. So those were some of the things that I liked the least. That said, there's Q.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Q.
Oh, for sure.
I love the way Q just comes in and does whatever the hell he wants.
Yep.
And it's like he's got some, big idea, big question, big thing, that the humans have to measure up to, have to prove up to. You remember in the original series, the episode that had the Gorn in it and the Metrons at the end, very good, Captain Marcy, that one.
Mm-hmm.
That was the way, and that was certainly appropriate for the way, the original series handled that. It's so much more sophisticated with Q. It's so much better written than the original series. I mean, I'll freely admit that in many, many spots, Next Generation is a better written series than original series, and everybody knows that I'm an original bigot. But in parts, the I think the writer on this was it was a lady who goes by the name of Michael Richards. She was Dorothy somebody. I forgot. She was Gene Roddenberry's old script editor, and I think she did a lot of the writing.
Dorothy Fontana, DC Fontana.
Yeah, DC Fontana.
It's a Polly. Hello, Polly Dub.
That's what I'm trying to think of.
You didn't hear me gasp earlier when he showed up?
Oh my God, it's Polly.
He's here.
Anyway, so I like that. Another thing that I thought was great, and I just enjoyed it so much, was DeForest Kelly's surprise appearance.
Yes,
I just dig that. This is such a great shout out to the original, and that made me, as an original series bigot, that made me just like the newcomer. I just liked it,
Well,
right
and
then.
the way
And
exactly what he told to Data,
treat like a lady, she'll get you home.
Yeah, it warms your heart, but it also puts a lump in your throat because he's like, I know I gotta retire, I gotta leave the Enterprise, and I don't really want to, so I'm just gonna tell the next person, like, just treat her good, and he's just the doctor, right? But it just shows you how much the Enterprise meant to him, and probably to the fans.
But that's real. That's the way officers and men feel about a ship that they've served on. And you work so hard, you go through so much stress and strain, and you really do build up this kind of band of brothers thing with your shipmates. But there's also this sentimental things that you feel for, the big old hunk of metal when they cut up my old ship into razor blades. I had a real lump in my throat when I heard about it.
Yeah.
You know what I always like? I mean, not okay. That you're right. Like, that is a nice moment. But what's kind of funny about that? It's like McCoy really couldn't have been more wrong in what he said. It's like, well, she's got the right name. You treat her like a lady, she'll always bring you home. Well, let's go over the Enterprises and see how true that is.
Yeah. It was a sentimental comment because it wasn't literally true. And not even.
It's like Data would probably absolutely know that. It's like, well, that's an odd statement for you to make, Admiral McCoy, considering that your best friend died on the Enterprise B.
Yeah. Ask Jim how it got him home.
Enterprise C was destroyed defending Kittimer, and Kirk, your best friend, destroyed the original Enterprise A. I don't know, man. There's a cursed name, if anything.
Nice. That's so true.
and then Riker.
Thanks for running that for me. Thanks, Polly.
Yeah, and then Riker crashes the D right into the atmosphere, and it's just wow.
That's the best part of that movie, just because Data going, "Oh shit."
And the Enterprise E, it did not get destroyed, but if he could see into the future, he would have known I'm going to die on the Enterprise E, so that didn't help me get home. Fuck.
He didn't. I'm going to be nitpicky here. He didn't die on.
That's true.
The Enterprise D,
but it didn't take him home.
It wasn't the ship's fault. And Riker didn't crash the D. I believe Troy was at the controls when it crashed.
But let's hear Polly answer a blind original question. Everybody's heard Hammer and Me. Polly has to answer the question.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Question. Which one did you like? Which pilot episode did you like better?
The Cage or Farpoint?
Ooh,
that was the first reaction I had. Ooh.
Asking the hard-hitting questions here on the Star Trek station.
Yeah, my initial thing was, well, if it wasn't for the original series, Next Gen wouldn't exist. So there's a certain amount of bowing down to that, But that was the thing I had about it.
What's I'm trying to go through all the possible criteria for evaluation, right? It's favorite versus best. Which one is more?
You're actually trying to answer the question honestly, as opposed to evading it like I did.
One criteria I thought of, they're both exceptionally Trekky.
Yes.
Yeah, very much.
This alternate mind screwy world of Cage where he you know, there's these big brain aliens that are messing with them, and it's not really what you think it is, versus the space mystery. And there's Q, like the return of the character from the Squire of Gothos in another form, you know. It's, I'd have to say Farpoint, because it's less proto Trek. Like the Cage is very proto Trek. Like it doesn't have all of the things. It's got laughing Spock, and it's got like it's
it does have laughing Spock.
It does have laughing Spock.
And angry Spock.
Yeah, and you got Chapel as number one,
and yelling for no reason, Spock.
And yelling for
you're right. Yeah, good call. Good call.
What was like?
Prepare to photograph.
Yeah.
What?
Easy there, Spock. Easy, bud.
What are you talking about?
Good point.
Settle down, big fella.
Probably. Yeah, I could say that because, you know, there's no Kirk, so I can get away with not naming the TOS one, because it's Kirk has that subtle charisma of leadership that you don't really. I mean, it starts off with the captain talking about, oh, I don't know if I want to be a captain anymore. You know, like if you know what I mean. They're.
Yeah, Pike said he didn't want to be a captain anymore. It was very.
What was the doctor's name? Mark. What?
Boyce.
Was it Boyce?
Boyce, I believe.
That was the actor.
Oh no, not the actor. Sorry, but the character
I thought Boyce was the actor.
The character's name was Dr. Boyce.
Okay, I just remember because the only thing I could recall off the top of my head is that he does call him Mark.
Yeah, his name is Philip Boyce.
Was it Philip? Okay.
Yep.
Hey, wait a minute. The actor and the character's surname is Boyce?
No, the person who played him was John Hoyt, Hoyt.
Okay.
But the character's name was Philip Boyce.
Okay, gotcha. I do love that he, you know, it made him a cocktail.
And they carried that characterization over to when Leonard McCoy was there, because it wouldn't be more than one time that McCoy did the same thing.
Right.
That relationship between the ship surgeon and the chief medical officer and the captain, they obviously didn't let that go, and that's a great thing. Like, who else are you going to talk to? You know.
So, which is better, Cage or Encounter at Farpoint?
You know what? I said Farpoint, but I'm going to go Cage, because Cage has the hottie. Well, no, the woman on the planet.
Oh, Vina.
Oh,
yeah,
Vina.
Yeah. Well, she wasn't really a hottie.
I was going to say, that's not hot. What the
I like the female engineer who's not number one. Who was the other chick that was in there? Because there was a decision on whether or not he was going to pick one of the other two women. And it was number one and the other chick.
Oh, you're talking about the two women he brought down. Okay, right.
Yeah, he says youth and strength is her, features, as opposed to the other one being intellectual.
Right.
The youth and strength, she was cute.
Yeah, the redhead. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I have a thing for redheads anyways.
Well, I guess I'm the lone one out. I think Farpoint's better than the Cage, but that's only because if the Cage had the crew from the rest of the series in it, I probably would have liked the Cage better, but I kind of had to get used to two sets of crew. You know what I mean? Like, there was one crew, and then the rest, and then in Man Trap there's another crew, and then and it's probably because also it's because I can't see, so there's longer gaps without dialogue in the Cage, so it's a lot harder to figure out what's going on in the Cage if you can't see what's going on. But
I pointed that out earlier about Voyager, how you start with one crew and end up with another crew. So it's kind of the same thing with the Cage. You start off with Boyce and end up with McCoy.
Yeah, except the Doctor on Voyager was an asshole.
That was kind of his charm, wasn't it?
But it wasn't charming though. It was like, oh, you're Tom Paris. You're that guy who was with the Maquis for 3 weeks. You fucker.
Oh, the original Doctor before. Yeah, that guy. Yeah,
the original Doctor. I don't remember him.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I mean.
He's on there.
Like,
Didn't even gave him a super dirty look. Didn't want to
apparently not memorable.
Yeah,
and then he was even a douchebag to Ensign Kim. He's like, "Well, you just better go report for duty." Then it's like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, why are you so mean?
I'm gonna have to watch Caretaker again because I don't remember him.
It's funny, Blind. I was listening to one of the podcasts, one of the Trek podcasts I listened to, and
Nerd.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It was funny. They referenced again how common it was for people to audio record, like to record the audio on cassette tape of the original series when there was the gulf between the cancellation of the series in 71 until the motion picture came out, that for like 8-9 years, VCRs hadn't really come out. So what are you going to do? And people used home movie recorders, the film recorders that were available at the time, to record it on TV because syndication hadn't really kicked off in like high gear. So what they had was cassette recordings of the audio of Star Trek. And that was the most common way that they enjoyed it, in audio format. And I've heard that story come up again and again. So in a way, that's like, listening to the episodes, you're like down with like an original fandom that none of us are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It especially if
some of us are old enough to remember that, Paul.
the great gulf of time.
Yeah. That was a thing. Believe it or not.
It was funny listening to the interview of Scott Bakula when he first got the role of Archer, saying, I remember Star Trek in college, and he talked about watching it in the dorm with his friends, and they mostly loved it because it was a sexy action show with a little bit of thought to it, but kept talking about how sexy it was and all the broads and stuff. And I'm like, a bunch of college guys, of course, this makes
Speaking of sex,
anyway, sorry.
Speaking of sexy women, what do you think of, because Troy is an annoying as fuck character sometimes, but what do you think of the interaction between Troy and Riker in Farpoint versus their interactions later? Like, how forced was that bullshit? Like,
oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, my headphones just cut out and I didn't realize it. Sorry if I was talking over somebody there.
No.
The Forrest is right. She was, and that's what ultimately, when so the question is like, which one is better? And I have to say the Cage, because it has a much lower cheese factor to it. Encounter at Farpoint has a heavy dose of cheddar in it. It just does. It's corny, a little bit of corniness. It doesn't mean I don't like it. It does have a lot of corniness to it. And man, they're Imzadi, and they're mentally communicating in the turbo lift with each other, and it just come on, a little bit of edge ain't gonna hurt nobody, and I don't mean grittiness.
Well, also let me just interject there. If you're going to do that kind of mental communication back and forth, actually write some back and forth. That was like two things that got communicated, via thoughts. You can get a lot of stuff across in thoughts.
Yeah.
If they were going to do that, I think they should have invested, more and gotten some plot accomplished.
Well, that was a writing error. Marina Sirtis on stage kind of explained all that, how they realized that after the first episode that having them being able to talk to each other telepathically was going to be something they would have to write around through the next however many years about, well, if they knew that was happening, then why couldn't she tell him telepathically? Everything that happened would have that added question about it. Every word, every circumstance always had, well, why didn't she use her telepathy? So they had to write it out.
In fairness, that you can invent a device, for, I can only do it when, Vega is aligned with Capella, and you know what I'm saying. You can make some artificial limitation.
But then you're doing that all the time.
No, you're not doing any. It would be something you'd have to keep a hold of, but it's no more.
Yeah, the writers just got rid of it entirely. I said, no, we can't do that.
No, for whatever.
Prospero says TNG set off soap opera notes from the get-go, unfortunately. And I'll admit,
Hammer knows I'm a long time advocate of the first season of TNG, and because people criticize it. Oh, it's the worst one, and it's like, shut up, it's awesome.
Much more than I am. You like it much more than I do.
Yeah, it just because to me it's misunderstood. You're framing it wrong when one looks at it. You're comparing it to seasons 3 and beyond,
right?
And
yes,
you can't.
It's true. Yeah, you can't, but I still do, and it's wrong. No, I agree that it's wrong, but I can't help but do it because those seasons, everyone will tell you, the writers, the actors, everyone will tell you that TNG really hit its stride in the third and specifically the 4th season.
Yes.
So when you see that and you experience it, it's hard not to turn on and say, Jesus, the first it was so awful, when it really wasn't.
It wasn't, and there's so much more fun to be had in the first season. Like just like nerdy Trek fun. I mean, data lore is there, and
yes.
when they visit theme planets, it's so much TOS throwback. Like
exactly. That's what I thought was it was a great update of the original series. When I first saw it, I thought they are doing this right. They are basically giving loving homage to the original series, not being bound by it, except in the important ways, space, the spaceship, the captain, all that kind of stuff. But they've updated the roles. They got a bunch of interesting characters. When the first season of TNG came out, I thought, I have got a new favorite show. I was just super pumped on it.
They literally redid an episode. They took the Naked Time and redid it and called it the Naked Now.
Naked Now.
And it had to be the second episode, right?
It's
like,
wow,
same, guys.
It's the same episode. It's just different actors.
It's not only the same episode, they
totally
reference the early episode in
when they wipe their hands, it makes the same sound. And you're just like, I know that sound.
But that episode has a great saving grace. Instead of a greased up Sulu, we see a sexy Yar, and that's a huge win for the males out there.
And then you get the android. At least you're functioning.
Well,
Captain.
And that's they kind of went okay. I had fun because just Brent Spiner is just such a monster actor. He can do anything. That guy.
Yes, he is.
But it makes no fucking sense at all.
No. If you prick me, do I not leak?
Yeah.
Oh, real quick, thank you to JTR Gulf City Serial Killer for the $30 Labs donation and the message, Q didn't do nothing wrong. Because Q is awesome.
Awesome.
I could talk about Q forever.
Yep. It really is the actor that would bring a character like that to life. Like John Delancey, another monster actor. Like the guy he can play him and the Squire of Gothos. They just inhabit those sort of like all powerful, fun loving. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't play those roles straight faced. I don't think.
No.
It just wouldn't work.
He's such a good actor that he appears on other Star Trek series, and he's great there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was on DS9 and he was great. He was on Voyager and he was great. It's just no matter where he went, that character was so well written and so well acted that it was immediately a hit. Whatever show that he was on, didn't matter what episode was about or anything. He showed up. It was immediately a great episode.
You hit me. Picard never hit me.
Great line.
And why couldn't Data use contractions? Yeah, I know.
Cannot.
But in the first season, he was constantly, we can't. We've got this. We're going to do. And then in season 2 and on and beyond. But the funny thing is, lore even points out where, he starts to not contract his words later on in the season, but he still messes up. But lore points out that he specifically can't do contractions.
Yeah. Notice how easily I use the contractions.
At some point, they should have given him the ability, just like they gave him an emotion chip in the movies. At some point, they should have given him the ability to use contractions. And it would have been nice to point it out. Data, you're using a contraction.
It should have come with the chip, actually.
It's a great example of something that was written into the show Bible that nobody wanted to change.
Yeah.
Like when you were mentioning the Voyager doctor earlier, Blind, and then Hammer said, well, that was kind of his character in referring to the holographic doctor, right? It written into the show Bible was his arc. He's going to start out as a prick, and over the series will, being around humans will want to develop his ability to interact with people, and he's always going to be this hard-edged guy, but he's going to become softer and more interested in develop relationships. And wow, that's foresight, where you're willing to develop an arc, where Data's arc is like also written into the Bible, into the show Bible. If you go look at it, that he will start out as a tableau and then become more and more human as he interacts with humans and develop the ability to laugh and jazz like that. But it's like, really? You don't give him the ability to use contractions? He couldn't write a program for this within a program? Like it doesn't even make sense, but yeah. Just
Sparrow says in season 2, Data became a 19th century Englishman. No contractions.
No. Doing that, that's the use of a device that doesn't get enough credit, called verisimilitude, having the appearance of truth or authority, where you have this inability to use contraction, and you go, okay, that's because he's an android. But it seems like it might make sense, but when you look at it closely, it doesn't make any sense at all. I love that. I think it's.
I think they should have.
I thought that was a great thing. I think
they should have pushed that arc along more than they did. He should have had the ability to laugh and use contractions and other things. It's not just those things.
You think he should have gotten more human than he did?
More quickly than he did. Yeah, I think the color of his eyes should have been blue, because there was that episode where Worf was moving from dimension to dimension or something like that. And one of those dimensions, he had blue eyes. I don't know if you guys caught that. Remember when Worf...
parallels.
Parallels, yeah, where there was multiple enterprises. One of the Datas had blue eyes.
I don't remember that.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not remember that.
Yeah, one of the Datas had blue eyes.
So I remember the advantages of 1080 Blu-ray, huh? No, but we've talked about that. Like Data's his gold eyes on the 1080 Blu-ray remasters just jump out in an almost creepy way that they don't in the original TV versions.
I wonder if they did that because everyone mentions his eyes on the show. Maybe they were trying to give us the same feeling that the characters were supposed to have. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
The eyes.
The episode that I actually think is a sleeper episode, there's a lot going on there and it's really interesting, is oh crap, I can't remember the name of the episode. It's where the character's name is Danar, and he's an engineered soldier that breaks loose there.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The Prisoner.
It's just called The Prisoner?
Yes.
That doesn't seem right.
I believe it's The Prisoner. Because he's Roga Danar.
Danar, yeah.
He's the and he's because he's an engineered super soldier and the war is over, he's on this moon with the rest of the super
and he had the rank of Subadar, but I can't remember the name of the episode. Fuck, nerd brains, man, we're weird.
I could have sworn it was A Prisoner, but
Roga Danar. Name of the episode was an Angosian soldier who served on the Angosian military during the Terrassian War. Played by Jeff McCarthy. What's the fuck's name of the episode? This is what I hate about Memory Alpha, is that the data on the website is just haphazard.
It doesn't say it. And hey, should be talking trash about Memory Alpha.
Oh, The Hunted is the name of the episode.
Oh, The Hunted. That's right.
Great episode. If you guys haven't watched it, it's a great sleeper. There's a lot of fun going on there. And if memory serves, that is also the first time that they use the phrase Jeffrey's tube in Star Trek.
Oh, really?
Yeah. After production designer Jeffries. Does everyone know that? Is that old news?
Actually, I've often wondered why they use the term Jeffries too.
The surname of the original production designer on TOS was Jeffries, and they named him after him.
That's pretty cool.
In any case, after we read down 5 nerdy bunny trails there, I brought up Data's eyes, because when Data goes and visits him in the prison, not the prison, the brig, he walks up and Danar looks at him and goes, "Why are your eyes yellow?" As opposed to his dead pale skin and his robotic movements and speech. The thing that you noticed was his eyes.
Was Data's movements robotic?
No, actually they were pretty fluid. Yeah, okay. But it just strikes me as odd. Like he sits up and looks at Data like through the force field and goes, "Why are your eyes yellow?" Well, that's the first thing you noticed, Datar? Like, what the hell?
I guess the color of the force field had a blue kind of tone to it. I guess it can make anybody look kind of bluish. So maybe that's why. The brightness of the force field could make anybody look washed out, but the yellow eyes are like blatant by comparison. Maybe that's why. I'm just kind of grabbing at straws here, but
all hail Blue Whale from Gulf City Freedom. Gulf City's frightening, man. They're in places you wouldn't think they are. They're everywhere.
It's funny. I enjoy watching Gulf City. Hi, Gulf City Freedom.
Yeah, man. I watch Gulf City live streams all the time, and it's just it's they've just got Gunfox is here. Wow, they just got friends everywhere. It's weird where the Blue Whale pops up, man. Like places you wouldn't expect it. It's
he's joined us.
What I really I'm dropping shit. Don't do that. What I would like to know about discuss is now that we're in all of these wonderful SJW times, what do you think about the court scene in Farpoint? Because I couldn't help, I watched it last night, and it was just so freaking, I was watching it going, you know,
pretty low production value.
Minus the guns and all of that, this seems pretty
lame.
Not lame, but like the
how SJW? I'm curious. Like
what?
Didn't you say in our current SJW times?
Yes, like
okay,
our current atmosphere where people seem to be leaning towards guilty until proven innocent.
Oh, what you're thinking of is you're seeing like regular people who just use regular speech being persecuted and held in a Star Chamber court, which is kind of like what that was with and what was the line that Q had? Don't hurt the prisoners until they're found guilty or something.
Prisoners will not be harmed, and then he says the prisoners will be found, he says something about you don't need to press those. You will not harm these prisoners until they've been found guilty. That's what
it is, and and where it gives you the feeling that being found guilty is going to be a perfunctory thing for these things, and being found guilty in SJW minds is the same as being accused of rape, for example.
Yes,
that's the same as being found guilty. Listen and believe. And there are people who really do. It's frightening. They really think that way. They would hang you. They would literally hang you. They would kill you just on the strength of somebody saying he's a rapist or he touched me the wrong way or he looked at me the wrong way.
There's even another line where Picard says, even though you're judge and prosecutor, and Q goes, and jury.
Right.
Yeah, the line from Star Trek is he turns to a soldier and he says, "You're out of order," and he turns to another soldier and he says, "The prisoners will not be harmed until they are found guilty." And then the prisoner who's on the ground, he says, "Dispose of that."
Yeah.
And then Picard says, "Can we assume that you mean this will be a fair trial?" And Q says, yes, absolutely equitable. And then later, Data repeats that line.
And then Q says that's irrelevant testimony.
Yeah. I love how Data takes issue with it. And he goes, this is a court of 2369, by which time all United Earth nonsense has been eliminated. It's like United Earth nonsense in the court of George Soros. Like, oh shit.
and then Picard says, I recognize this court. It's the one that agreed with that line from Shakespeare, kill all the lawyers. And Q's like, which was done.
First, let's kill the lawyers is the actual line.
Which led to the rule guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
Was the next line.
It's a very interesting analogy to watch that episode and then look at like what's been going on with Kavanaugh, and it's like,
It's close, isn't it? Close.
Yeah, and this was 31 years ago that this episode was aired.
Well, if that had actually transferred forward into the future, the episode where the group of 3 aliens that are into deep memory recovery were there.
Violations.
Yeah. It's Troy would just have to point it at the younger one and say, he raped me, and they would have like thrown him out an airlock,
Or that matter of perspective episode where Riker is accused of raping the dude's wife and then killing the dude.
Yeah, their Rashomon episode. That's a great episode.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, but notice Riker has to prove his innocence in that episode, right?
Yes.
You have no evidence other than the fact that this woman said, and then in a recreation demonstrates her. Yeah, he pushed himself up on me. But then again, Riker also accuses her of being like a floozy, that she was trying with him.
Yeah, that's true.
Reading through the Memory Alpha page on this episode at Encounter at Farpoint, which we're supposed to be talking about. In the get this, guys, I'm gonna give you a reason to be sad. In an early version of DC Fontana's first story outline bearing the working title Meeting at Farpoint, which was dated December 5th, 1986. There's another ship in orbit there called the Star Seeker, and Captain Summers was promoted to captain, of the Star Seeker, and was scheduled to take over command of that science vessel at Farpoint Station. Well, in orbit of that facility, crew transfers included Lieutenant Commander William Riker, Lieutenant Commander Data, Dr. Beverly Crusher, and her 15-year-old daughter, Leslie.
Leslie.
And that thing is wrong, by the way.
Well, how so?
Other than her 15-year-old daughter, Leslie. That's the prototype thing, right?
Yeah, that's the early version of the script from 5th of December, 86.
Because they picked that up because it's Geordi who comes on with Riker.
Right. But what...
In the actual later script.
Guys, we came so close to know Wesley. So close.
I know.
But then we would have had Shut Up, Leslie.
And it's something that I did think about, where it's like Will Wheaton said, like, he didn't like, in an interview, said, I didn't like the name Wesley. It's so annoying. And what the hell's with that? And my mom said, you're going to be quiet. That's Gene Roddenberry's middle name. Hence the name. And when I read Leslie, I'm like, is that a Roddenberry inclusion? Did he see Dorothy Fontana's script and say, Leslie? No, let's make him a boy and call him Wesley. Like, damn you, Roddenberry. Damn you.
What year was that rape episode, Prospero is asking? Which one, Prospero? The Violations episode or the Matter of Perspective episode? Because they're in 2 different seasons. The Matter of Perspective is season 3, so that would be 89. And Violations was season 5.
It didn't start in 80. I thought the first year was 88.
87.
87. Okay.
So 92 or no, 91 would have been 91 or 92 would have been season 5.
5. Yeah. Okay.
You know what is funny? Like, so I think an interesting point for discussion here is like initial impressions, like as best that one can remember them. Because I don't remember the first time I watched Encounter at Farpoint.
I remember.
I remember.
It would have been in syndication the first time I saw it. Hardly could have watched it from a crib or a bassinet.
Some of us were waiting with bated breath for that. Tell you what, just hyperventilating to come out. And you know, if you don't mind because I'm anticipating your question. You're going to say, how did you react to the introduction of some of the characters? What did you think about when you first saw it? What was your initial reaction? I've got to tell you that my initial reaction was that I was really worried about Picard as a captain because I didn't like him too much. I thought his performance was spotty. It turned out the writing, I think, in my opinion, was spotty. Yeah. In the first, it turned out to be magnificent, nearly as good a captain as Kirk. But the other thing was that when I thought about Riker, I thought that's the guy who's supposed to be captain. After the first episode, I thought they've got this wrong. And that, if I was going to cast this, I would put this uncertain, moody, strange guy in some kind of funny staff position, science officer or something. And I would have Will Riker, who just, looks like he's the paragon of confidence, because I was going to try and rebuild the Kirk archetype or go with the Kirk archetype and just rebuild another Kirk. And it actually took a while for Picard to grow on me. Eventually, I realized he was brilliant as a captain.
Well, Roddenberry did it on purpose. He specifically took the Kirk archetype and split him into two people. Yeah. He made Riker the gunslinger, and he made the.
Is that right?
I
did not know that he.
Yeah, he intentionally did that. Nope, that's exactly what he did. He intentionally did.
Hence the inclusion of the Starfleet regulation that captains do not go down to a planet unless it's absolutely required that it's the first officer goes around and does because who cares? First officers are a dime a dozen.
Dime a dozen, exactly. The captain strikers, fuck them.
You know what sold me on Picard as a captain? But I was too young to have grown up with TOS and syndication. So it probably didn't take me nearly as long as it did you guys. But what sold me on Picard as a captain, especially in Farpoint, was the way he reacted to Q. He didn't falter when it came to Q. Like, the only time he really faltered was at the end when he's like, I'll do whatever you say. Right.
He just stayed mad and offended by Q. Q was showing up on his bridge and ordering him to do what he told him to.
But when he got to the courtroom, right, and he was being faced with the charges of the human race being egregiously savage, you got you got a brief glimpse of Picard in his later form. You got a brief glimpse of the strong champion of humanity that Picard is, and the strong the ability that he just takes charge, and he's like he knows that his crew is in danger because he knows that they have been selected as the what's the word I'm looking for? the subset that will define humanity, and he knows that, and you see for that brief moment, I think that's when, for that scene, the writing was at least better, or Picard was, or Patrick Stewart was allowed to ad-lib maybe a little bit. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like it. You get that glimpse of the captain that will fight for his crew, and also you get a view of the litigator that Picard is. And
I think you see a micro hint of it even before then. One of the first things he yells at not yells, but it strongly retorts to Q is no, the same old story is what we're seeing here now. Self-righteous entities that are quick to condemn.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like, yeah, you're not putting up with any shit from this guy. That's great.
There's a couple of instances where he does that, because when he's asked to read the charges, he looks down, he doesn't read anything aloud. No. And he just says, I don't see any charges against us.
Yeah.
And then when he's told that he's a grievously savage child race, Picard says, that could mean anything. Yeah. It's like, there's nothing that you're going to say that's going to intimidate me, is the reaction I got from it.
Hold on, and a scene just popped into my head, and it's something like, when Q comes back the next time, in Hide and Q, he when he shows up on the bridge, it's like, when we first met, you attempted to condemn us as ignorant savages. You seized my vessel, and then the next time we met, you did it again, and you seized my. Oh, and that angered you, did it? Seized my vessel. Seized my vessel.
and the whine that John Delancey puts into his voice.
Oh, yes.
Seized my vessel. Seized my vessel.
Yeah, this is a man who's too used to military privilege. But you, Riker, that was just it was like, because that's Patrick Stewart being powerful and he's telling him off, and Q's response is to just mock him.
It's funny how the relationship is between the two of them, because when it comes right down to it, Picard treats Q like a child, yet Q sees Picard as a pet.
Yes.
So if you look at those two things, it's hard to grasp, because Q does something and Picard just says, kill! And just yells at him like a child, And Q says, oh, okay. So it's very much.
It's like Q is a cat. He has a cat-like attitude.
Yet he treats Picard like a pet. Yet he is the pet. It's very
exactly. That's what I mean.
Yes, that's exactly what cats do.
I'm not kidding. I was serious about that.
Yeah,
they are the pet. However, they treat the humans as though they are the.
In terms of first impressions, I have to say, I don't like Riker, and it took during the entire first season. I don't like Riker. He's first of all, he's a total beta for Picard.
Yeah,
and to him too. Like when he's not even in the room. Like in, I believe it is Hide and Q, the episode where Q offers him Q powers, and he goes, you're reminding me of your captain. Well, now that is a compliment, Q. Like it's just, he's just such a sycophant. You know what I mean? And he's like he's a Ken doll. He's a
Ken doll.
he's a tall, striking male figure that's lacking in any kind of substance. I just find him uninteresting. Yeah, I just find him uninteresting, and
he's kind of one-dimensional. I agree with you.
But as the series developed, you find out more about his past, and he's got this whole thing going on with this mutiny that he was involved in, and he's actually and best of both worlds. He's actually an innovative tactical thinker, and you get to see a lot more of him. But in the first season, and especially that first episode, he's a Ken doll, man, and I didn't like him very much. I didn't hate him. I just found him boring.
And he's like unnecessarily like that whole scene when Troy's like, no, don't, if you should be hurt, and he's like, you will carry out your orders, Lieutenant.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yes, we get that you two were together and you're trying to like pretend that doesn't Like, come on.
That's actually a really good example of the forced thing that you were talking earlier. Yeah, that line is cringe, man. If you should be hurt, like it's just like, oh. Please.
Before I forget about it, there is a book called Imzadi.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the author, but he's made a lot of Star Trek novels. If you get a chance, you have a friend somebody who has it, or you can buy it cheap off of, a used table or something like that. Get a copy of that book and read it, because it will change your whole perspective on how that whole Imzadi thing is. Seems very cheap and cheesy to us on the outside just watching the TV show, but once you read the book, you'll see it in a different light for those who like to read. When you get a chance, if you find somebody who has a copy, or you can get something cheap on Amazon for like $3 or something like that, pick it up, because it's a really, really well-written book.
I wonder if
and it really explains the whole thing inside and brings a depth to it that you don't get from the TV show.
I'd like to see if Audible has it. That would be interesting.
Well, I can check
I won't find it in Braille.
While you're all chatting, I can go ahead and check Amazon and see if I can find it. But I have it, or at least I had it when I moved. I think I lost some of my Star Trek books, but I'll check. Go ahead and go on to your next topic. I'll go ahead and look. Amazon.
Oh, what was it? Oh yeah, my story that so I was putting the 1-year-old to sleep, and Pincalo had the 4-year-old, and he was getting him to sleep. And I guess Pincalo put on Encounter at Farpoint, because sometimes the 4-year-old likes to watch Star Trek when he falls asleep. So the scene where they try to trick Q by splitting the Enterprise up happens. And the 4-year-old goes, "The ship, it's broken into 2 pieces."
That was
the cool part. I like that. I like that idea that they had about splitting the Enterprise.
Yep.
That was a cool feature that Next Generation added, I think. Or was it? Did it ever do that in the original series? I can't remember.
No, it did not.
It couldn't, but it was bandied about when they were first deciding on how to create the actual starship.
Well, it could have been done.
To.
It could split, but docking it again is tricky because it would have to break it off. You'd have to break the ship physically.
Love the manual docking scene where if you look, like, it's supposed to be like, so this is a great feat of piloting, and that's supposed to be Riker's thing, that it comes up a lot that he's the master pilot.
Yeah.
If you watch the scene, it's like he doesn't do very much.
No.
Yeah.
He just
tells people to do stuff a lot.
He's up axis, pitch 20 degrees.
Right, exactly.
That's it.
It's mostly rough. Lock them down, boys.
And Data, the android, is like, "You're going to do this manually, sir?"
I had said that I wasn't going to do this and subject you guys to this, but after what Polly said, I just have to. Being aboard a ship, a U.S. Navy ship, a big one, a big tanker, when it docks in port, how long do you think it takes an experienced pilot and ship's company to dock the ship to port? Just give a number off the top of your head.
I would say
half a day. How long?
I would say to dock a large ship like that.
How long from the time you're 100 feet away from the pier to the time it's time to put the gangway down? How long do you think that what do you think that elapsed time is? I would like estimates from all you guys.
It's in a matter of hours, like 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah,
4 to 6 hours.
That's my total ignorant guess. Yeah.
How about you, Blind?
I was gonna say something like 5 or 6 hours, maybe.
Okay, Hammer, what do you think? Googling frantically so you can impress.
No, I'm just trying to think of, I guess a ship like the Enterprise, like an aircraft carrier, as opposed to like something small like a sub.
Aircraft carriers incidentally take about the same amount of time.
I'd say at least
as my little 400-foot ship, huh? At least a day.
least a day. Tugs moving it forward and backward, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
all the coordination.
Okay. First of all, this is after the tugs have let go, so the tugs have already departed the yard. Okay, and you don't use tugs. That's only cruise ships. They use tugs and have side thrusters and stuff. This is done with 2 screws. It takes an experienced pilot, an experienced ship company, about 2.5 hours to go the last 75 feet to the dock. If it's the ship's company without the experienced pilot, it will take roughly double that long. This does not change. And it's interestingly enough, just very slightly longer. It's just a little bit longer. And my experience was aboard the USS Enterprise, oddly enough, the one time I was aboard her when she docked, took about an hour longer. And we had an experienced pilot on board. You would never have a guy transfer on board and have the captain say, "Hey, dock the ship. Just dock the ship by yourself." When he said that, I just went, no. That was one thing that anybody who was in the Navy went cringe at that command. That would have been something that, unless it's a very different thing, unless it really is, hey, take care of that with me. It's nothing more than making a piece of toast. But no, doing something like that, something that big with the forces that are at play it's a big frickin' deal. There's a lot of things to
such a dick about doing it about him after. He's like, "Well done, that was."
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's no big deal. No step for a
routine, but you did it well. Like, okay.
But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean. I just had to make that statement since you guys were talking about it.
Well, I know that it's game night. I don't know, Hammer, if you're playing tonight with the minions, but they're starting in about 25 minutes.
Blind, you're a minion too.
Yes, I know, but I can't play.
They're not a foreign prime, honey. Oh, there was one other thing, a funny thing in there that it was purely something visual that happened. And that was when Riker is asking the ensign for directions on ship. He's just freshly on board ship. And she says yes and tells him how to get there. He walks away and she looks him up and down and stare, and you can tell she's looking right at his butt. He's off camera and she just checks him out totally
and smiles
exactly. I love that.
Little sexist.
Prosperous says Wesley, the idiot savant. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Wesley saves the day like 10,000 times.
Shut up, Wesley.
Probably the best part of the whole episode is at the end, because they bring the original Star Trek original series ending into the show. Most of the times at the end of Star Trek, you have Kirk sitting in the chair and Spock on one side, McCoy on the other. And Spock and McCoy make a quip at each other, and everybody kind of laughs, and that's the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that with this one, where Riker sits down and says, that was something about not being interesting, or being, it's odd that how interesting this was. And Picard says, yeah, I'm sure our future experiences are going to be far more interesting than this. Kind of a nod back to that original, the two of them sit down at the end and joke kind of deal. They even wrap up the first episode in the same way that the original series did. There was kind of a nod there.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yep, absolutely.
Too bad we'll never see anything like the original series again. Unless you want to watch the Orville, you're going to never see Star Trek again.
I don't want to watch the Orville.
You afraid you might like it?
Well,
you will.
that's neither here nor there. You just said so. I just
You will like it. I'll tell you that right now. I don't know anybody who hasn't. Everybody I've talked to about it, everyone says, that's a good show. Even people who don't equate it with Star Trek still think it's a good show. So I haven't heard anybody say, oh, it's awful.
I haven't seen any of it, but I should take a look at it.
It's like watching TNG with a little bit more humor. It has a captain's chair in the center. It's an ensemble cast. It's very much like the Next Generation and TOS in that respect. It's not all about Michael Burnham.
Yeah, like I don't want to watch the STD. Yeah, no kidding.
I know. What a great acronym for the show. Star Trek Discovery, STD. Great.
I watched the first 2 episodes, and when I saw the Klingons with their dead around their ship as armor, I was like, no.
Nope.
I mean, when you watch the Midnight Edge channel and they run down the history of how Discovery came about, it's like, yeah, this was going to be a disaster from the beginning. It's so obvious. They were, it's CBS Paramount's flagship. It's like what happens with comic books. We're launching this half-ass idea, and the drooling idiot locked-in fan base is going to watch it no matter what we do. Now let's do a whole bunch of SJW stuff on top of it. Like it doesn't really work like that. And Netflix fell for it too. They were like, we will pay you so much for the licensing fee to be able to have it on Netflix that we pretty much paid for your first season, because they believed, there's a locked-in drooling idiot fan base and guaranteed views, guaranteed. And it's or you could fuck it up royally and nobody will like it.
What do you think about the series that they're starting to film with Patrick Stewart now? The continuation.
I don't like talking about it.
What a great response. I don't like
This is perfect.
I mean, what you might think, like, it's like, I hope it's good, but so much can go wrong. I just don't want to talk about it. Like,
I feel exactly the same way.
I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to be disappointed, and I know it's going to be disappointing.
Like all you got to do is think about like, but it's Picard. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, that's what people thought about The Last Jedi. It's Luke Skywalker. It's got to be awesome. And then look what they did to him. Like they could cuck Picard right out, and turn him into this weird, creepy old dude.
Do you think Patrick
castrate him and
Stewart
kill him?
Allow that, because Patrick Stewart is not he's not one of the, like, most of the Star Trek TNG actors have gone completely left wing. Unfortunately.
Is Patrick Stewart also doing that, or is he?
No, he does not seem to be.
Yeah, it's him. It's him and Shatner, man.
Yeah,
and especially the Shat man.
It's amazing to watch him on Twitter. He is a fucking god. I'm proud. I'm proud that man is Canadian. Oh man.
Yeah, I heard that there was some kind of Star Trek convention where the entire cast took a knee, kind of like the Kaepernick thing.
Oh God!
Yep.
Kill me.
Just why? Like it just.
Jonathan Frakes is all SJW because he's right behind. He's involved with Star Trek Discovery, and he's perfectly okay with what's going on. Like
he's involved with the Orville too. He's directing an episode of it.
Like I'm worried it's going to be like, the first thing that I heard in terms of a review of STD was like it in the first scene it passes the Bechdel test, and I was like, oh well, then it's got to be great,
Yeah.
What I want to know is,
on from there, it's like we have a person of color, and you don't see any white people in the first scene, and it's like, so what the fuck? What has this got to do with anything? Like you people are weird, man.
I want to know when the fuck Sarek fostered a human girl. Like, where did that come from?
I still feel the same way about Star Trek V, where it's like, you know, it seems Sarek was like pretty freaky and he got around because he's like siring Cybok and then Spock, and he's got like 3-4 different wives, and he's just like, you know, he's adopting human children, and
he's complicated man.
He's outliving all of his wives. That's why they're all human and dying before he does.
He's got a thing for the human chicks, doesn't he?
Well, I think it's because they are so short-lived, and he knows that he can be a serial monogamist with a whole, you know, with fresh girls all the time, because he's an old dog like that. You know,
if problems develop, they'll self-solve.
Sarek with interracial marriages, interspecies marriage,
interspecies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hate to keep pushing Orville on you guys, but you understand that the doctor from Voyager has got a part on the Orville, and that Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, is going to be in an episode of the Orville. Did you guys know all that stuff?
Yeah, I know. Like Patrick Stewart
not tempted yet. Not tempted.
Is friends with Seth MacFarlane, but Seth MacFarlane and their whole writing staff have no imagination. I'm not surprised that they're going to pimp every last fucking remnant scrap off of the Trek that they possibly can, because it's a photocopy show. Right. No offense, I'm just saying.
And Brandon Braga is a consultant on the show too.
Good. Hopefully he'll tank it the way he did Voyager.
Yeah, I know you don't like Braga, but but for the people who have a more, you know, medium look at Braga, he was involved with Star Trek over multiple series, and knows how Star Trek is.
Well,
supposed to be written.
Is always the same. It's like some people are great writers, and which he is a highly competent writer, and he knows what he's doing. He just shouldn't ever be a showrunner, because whenever he became a showrunner, like some people just don't work best when they're in charge, you know.
So, you know, not like I'm going to continually push the Orville, but I think you might want to take a shot at it, and, you know, watch a couple episodes, and then make up your mind before you write it off entirely, just because of some of the things that are being said about it. To actually take a look at it and watch it. There's a guy that I sub to who does a show called Egotastic Fun Time, and he's a pretty funny guy, but he does reviews on Discovery News for Star Trek Discovery and about the Orville. So if you want to keep up on that kind of stuff, he's actually an entertaining guy. Egotastic Fun Time. You watch a couple of his things. He brings out news. So and so, this is happening next season. This is happening next season. One of the people who were on the show last season left. They won't be on it this season. Someone else is replacing him. This is the actor who's replacing them. All that kind of stuff. So it's good news.
Well, maybe I'll check it out.
Maybe.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up, guys. Thanks for coming out. I had a lot of fun.
I did too, Blind. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. I really like talking Star Trek with you guys.
Yeah, I love Star Trek talk.
I'm doing the Caretaker probably on the 14th, I think, of October, because next week I'm at the family cottage shutting down for Thanksgiving, because it's Canadian Thanksgiving next week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll actually be doing a live stream from the cottage with my father. We're going to be talking Star Trek versus Star Wars and how they ruined Star Wars. So we're going to be, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be Blind Press and her old man.
That does sound very interesting. I'll be tuned in.
Yeah, me too.
Well, thanks so much for coming out, guys, and chat. Thank you so much to Cult of Krill and JTR, Gulf City Serial Killer, for the donations. They do help out quite a lot. And once again, thanks to Skep Talk, Hammer, and Polly for coming out. And we will see you guys on the 14th for the review of the Caretaker. Or no, not the Caretaker, the Emissary. Because we're doing them in order. Silly me. The Emissary came before Caretaker.
Yep.
So we'll be doing.
Well, I noticed we skipped right over TAS. That's just.
The animated series?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I didn't think about the animated.
No one ever does.
No.
I know it's canon.
It's good too.
Yeah, it is good. And original writers and all the
Yeah.
voice actors and everying. Yeah.
Oh, it was
So
a
we'll see
good
you on the
show.
14th for the TAS intro.
You know
right?
what? We will.
There you
I
go.
want to do that. I want to do that one. So we'll do that.
Excellent.
So yeah, with that in mind, I will see everyone on Monday for the coffee stream. Actually, if you
And don't
guys
forget,
want-
today's National Coffee Day.
It is National Coffee Day. Yes.
Yeah.
Enjoy a cup with friends.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. Well, thanks for coming out, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Later.
Good night, everybody.